Hello, this is Josh. In academics and athletics, we often try as best as we can as coaches and teachers to prepare our students and athletes for success. However, one often overlooked component of this preparation is the mindset and the beliefs that we and our students hold in regard to personal ability and the chance to succeed. Within the conversation of mindsets for performance, there are often two types of mindsets that have been discovered. There is a fixed mindset where one believes that they are only capable of certain things and there's no chance to improve on these abilities. The opposite to this is a growth mindset, which can be defined as the amount of passion and perseverance people have as they work toward long term goals when they face problems, challenges, anything that could slow down or prevent their progress. A growth mindset, I believe, boils down to intrinsic motivation. So, doing something because you enjoy it, you find satisfaction in it, you find drive from your own self to complete this task. I believe that growth mindset also comes from having grit, or what some people refer to as stick to itiveness. Grit can be defined as pursuing, making progress through a task, even though it's painful, even though you failed before, you're still trying. A final component of growth mindset, in my experiences, is having agency, which is being in control of yourself, having self determination, knowing that you are in control and you take charge of your own actions and beliefs. A person with a fixed mindset believes that they are born with certain things, strengths, skills, abilities that cannot be changed throughout their lifetime, no matter how much energy or effort they put into improving. Having a fixed mindset, one is often looking for how people perceive them. They worry about how people feel or think about them. They worry about their performance only in regard to what others see in that performance. So, people with the fixed mindset, I have noticed that in my 3 years as a teacher, as a robotics and cross country coach, most of my students originally possess a fixed mindset. Students are afraid to step outside of their comfort zone, they are afraid to challenge themselves. However, during this decision to not challenge themselves, they in fact miss opportunities to grow, to improve, and to learn more about themselves and whatever content area it is that we're working in. Contrary to a fixed mindset is the growth mindset. I first learned about having a growth mindset in my teaching credential program through Fresno Pacific. In this class, we read through some of the works of Carol Dweck and learned about not only growth mindset, but Gardner's idea of multiple intelligences. And so during this reading, I kind of came to the realization that I am myself capable of many things as long as I put the energy, the time, and the effort into improving this thing. So having a growth mindset, one believes that they can take charge and change their own abilities, their own talents, their own strengths or skills. So having a growth mindset, you learn what to do better the next time if you do experience failure. So during failure, you find out, okay, maybe it didn't work this time. What can I change? What can I improve next time to do better? This is, as a teacher, what we would define as learning, is making improvements to prevent failure from happening in the future. Throughout history, there have been a lot of people who did not start out being the most talented. So one example is Michael Jordan. We've all heard the story of how he didn't make his freshman basketball team. As most of us are well aware, Michael Jordan is one of the most famous basketball players of all time. He's one of the most successful. But that little failure in high school did not set him back because he possesses a growth mindset. He learned that, okay, sure, I failed this time, but if I make the changes that are necessary, I can improve, I can become better, and I can find success for myself. Another example is Roger Bannister. He's the man that broke the 4 minute mile. Before Roger Bannister, there were several other people that became so close to breaking this 4 minute barrier, but they believed that it was impossible. They were of a fixed mindset. And so, no matter how many times these other runners tried to break the 4 minute barrier, they simply thought that it wasn't possible. No one could ever do it. However, Roger Bannister came along, and with his growth mindset, with his belief in himself, and that this record was in fact possible, he went out and broke the 4 minute mile. And just a few months later, several other people went on and also broke the 4 minute mile. So as soon as he broke down that barrier, other people were able to understand that, okay, maybe sure this is possible, and they found success themselves. With having a growth mindset, you must understand that Even though you may not be able to do something at this moment, in the future, you may be able to if you stick to it, if you keep trying, if you learn from your mistakes, and if you find support. So failure throughout this experience in sports or academics is simply a learning opportunity. You learn more about yourself, you learn what's required to find success in the future. One's mindset and the sources of motivation are very much connected. Someone that is extrinsically motivated is seeking a reward. This reward may be monetary, it may be attention, it may be a plaque, a trophy, some sort of award. Typically, people that are extrinsically motivated are of a fixed mindset. Extrinsic motivation is somewhat finicky. It comes and goes, it's not long lasting. You have extreme highs and extreme lows throughout this reward based process. However, someone that is intrinsically motivated is more worried about the process of achieving those results. So instead of worrying about the destination, they focus more on the journey of reaching that success. So someone that's intrinsically motivated is more of a growth mindset. They understand that throughout this long journey towards success, there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be failure. However, if they keep on trying, they will find that internal based reward system through the process. With motivation, we must remain aware that motivation can be nurtured and extrinsic motivation can become internalized. So, with proper teaching, with proper instruction and support, we can teach others how to find that intrinsic motivation, how to become more focused on the process rather than the reward or the destination. With intrinsic motivation, there is a chemical released, dopamine, which promotes attentiveness and behavioral engagement. Quite often nowadays we hear about a flow state of mind or a flow state. This is typically something where someone's extremely in the moment, they're worried about the task at hand, everything else in the world, all the problems kind of fall off to the side. I myself have experienced this in several different ways. I've experienced it on endurance type runs or cycling events where it's just me and my body moving for several hours on end. But there are some times where there's this rush of dopamine where everything just simply feels easy, it feels natural, it feels like it doesn't take any effort at all. The same thing can be true in other arenas such as academics or if you're reading a book. This release of dopamine where you're simply enjoying this process of learning, of challenging yourself and overcoming obstacles. You are 100% in the moment and you're giving everything that you have to that task at hand. With motivation, it's important to keep in mind that change is easier when you know which direction you are headed in and why changing is worth the effort. So, in changing someone's mindset from a fixed to growth mindset, it's important to inform them, to make them aware, and to model the direction that they should be heading towards and why it's going to be worth all the time, all the effort, all the failures to reach that long term achievement. In teaching and coaching, we often find that because our students are stuck in a fixed mindset, that they are not willing to take on the challenges that are natural to our sport or to our content area, which for me is physical education. Quite often, students enter my classroom and they've had a lot of bad experiences in the past, and so they are not willing to step outside of their comfort zone. They're not willing to experience failure or to challenge themselves in this new environment that will be supporting of them and their abilities. So it's really important for us to teach a growth mindset, to teach students how to fail and to enjoy the process of failure as they will learn from these experiences and become better for it. In the world of science, we have discovered neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form and reform neural connections in response to experiences and changes in our environment. Simply put, with each thing that we interact with, we learn something from the process. Our brain becomes rewired. We learn how to adapt. We learn how to reconnect or to connect with things in different ways through simply becoming in contact or experiencing these changes. As teachers and coaches, we must be mindful and teach our students and athletes of this concept that their brain is this growing organism and that if you challenge yourself, your brain itself will rewire. itself to be able to embrace those challenges and to sacrifice the ego in order to experience success. So throughout this process, it's important for us to strive to make the idea that making mistakes is normal and healthy a part of the practice and competition process. So during practice, it's very important for us to ensure our students or our athletes that even though they are maybe missing shots or they are not following a strategy that the team has put together appropriately, making mistakes and then becoming aware of the mistake and learning how to prevent future mistakes is normal, it's healthy, and it's part of the process of becoming better and from learning. In preparing for competition, it's important for us to impart the benefit of self-talk and positive self-talk more significantly. So teaching our students and athletes how to build up their own confidence, how to build up their self-esteem before competition, to remind them of all the practice, all the efforts that they put in, all the mistakes that they've made and learned from throughout the process in order to be ready to tackle and embrace any challenge that comes their way in a competition or practice in the future. As coaches and teachers, we must be mindful and cognizant of the feedback that we are providing for our students and athletes. So often it becomes easy just to respond off the top of your head with a quick, witty kind of joke. However, it's more important for us to focus on the motivational factors that play into our athletes' performances. And so positive feedback may enhance one's intrinsic motivation, while on the opposite side, negative feedback may undermine one's motivation. So in regard to positive feedback, these are phrases. One example is maybe, "Oh wow, you look like you've tried really hard doing that. That was great. You may not have succeeded, but I noticed your effort, and I really like to see that." So that's an example of positive feedback. It's kind of recognizing and identifying that an athlete or student put in a lot of effort, and then that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the effort because that's going to lend itself to future learning. On the opposite side is negative feedback, where it simply discredits maybe the performance or the effort that someone put into something. So maybe telling someone that what they did looked really easy, or that maybe that they're not trying hard enough. Those are types of negative feedback which are going to simply tear down one's motivation. They're going to decrease one's motivation or desire to do better. So as coaches and as teachers, we must be mindful of the feedback that we're providing our students and athletes in order to build the confidence, in order to teach a growth mindset, and in order to encourage them to try their best, even if that includes failing. One of my favorite practices in the classroom and with my teams is the practice of setting SMART goals. So these goals are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're time oriented. And so in setting these goals, I first model the setting of these goals for my students and athletes. I usually use a physical fitness type example for them. So last October, I was training for a 100-mile bicycle ride. And so I was telling them throughout the semester about all my training that I had been undergoing. But I laid out for them step by step my way in which I set my goal and how it reached each of these letters in the acronym of a SMART goal. And so by writing down my goal, by making it very specific, by writing exactly what I want to achieve, by ensuring that it's measurable, that I can track my progress and the process of attaining that goal, by the goal being realistic, something that maybe I have almost reached in the past, but it's just slightly outside my comfort zone, and a goal that's time oriented where I have an extreme explicit deadline. These are things that I model for students and that I encourage them to take on and practice themselves, whether that's for competition, whether it's for athletics, extracurriculars, or just anything in their life. Setting a SMART goal is going to be one way to ensure that you are making the progress, you are taking the steps and the actions in order to reach that end result that you want, by having a growth mindset and knowing that, sure, I have this lofty goal ahead of myself and the path to get there might be a little bit rocky, but by following my action plan, I will be able to eventually reach that goal because I've laid out in motion all the steps necessary to achieve that goal. One last thing that I strive to do in my classroom to teach and to influence my students to have a growth mindset is to simply make the learning in my classroom appealing to the interests of my students. So if I have a class this next year and there are students in there that come into my classroom loving golf, loving tennis, I will simply make the changes to my classroom curriculum to embody those needs and those interests of my students while still incorporating all the necessary components of a comprehensive physical education program. So with making learning exciting, I am finding ways to challenge students within their interest domain in order to develop and maintain a growth mindset. In conclusion, in the world of sports and academics, it's important for us as professionals to embody and to model this idea of having a growth mindset in order to positively influence and impact the lives of our students and athletes.